really happy you're here. I always love seeing comments from you guys and just seeing my view count, and I just really appreciate everyone who stops by and checks out my videos. So thank you so much. And I'm also very excited to have this bad boy, my Blue Yeti microphone. at some point, she moved to Pennsylvania and started attending the Bryn Mawr College outside Philly. It's an all-women's liberal arts school. Holly was very much involved in the counterculture, as was Einhorn, and that's how they met each other, with their shared interest there. And pretty much immediately upon meeting one another, they moved in together into Einhorn's apartment. And this kind of sparked the beginning of this very tumultuous and on and off rocky relationship. In 1972, in 1977, in September, Holly breaks up with Ira after meeting another man. So, after she meets this new guy, she moves away with him, I believe, to New York City. There wasn't much information regarding that, but she breaks up with Einhorn, and the last day she's seen is on September 9th of 1977. She's never seen after she goes to the old apartment that she shared with Einhorn to collect her belongings. So that sparks a lot of suspicion there that the last day she was seen, she was going to her ex-boyfriend's apartment to get her things. And Einhorn claimed that she kind of just left and that was that, but she called him and told him that she was safe, and that's all he had to say about her disappearing. And there wasn't, like, the police didn't have a lot to go on, I guess, I don't know, because it was a couple years until they really started to dig into the case. So the police weren't working on it, but Holly's family hired two private investigators, and they were former FBI agents. So they start digging into this guy, Einhorn, and they uncover that he had physically abusive relationships with several women in the past, and that includes Holly. So in March 1979, Mike Chitwood, a detective, is assigned to Holly's case. And the first thing that he did was he met with the private investigators who were looking into her disappearance, and the investigators gave Chitwood the file that they compiled. And Chitwood said, like, he looked at it and immediately just knew that Einhorn was guilty. It was behind her disappearance. So the residents that lived in the same building as Einhorn complained of a stench and a sludge-like substance seeping from Ira's floor through the ceiling of his neighbor below. So you can already guess what that's all about. It's very disturbing. And for some reason, I don't think that was, like, looked into, like, right after, like, the complaints weren't really, investigated as soon as they were put in. So, now, on March 28th, 1979, Chitwood leads Philly police to Einhorn's apartment at 3411 Race Street with a 32-page search warrant in hand. Police find Holly's mummified body stuffed in a trunk in Einhorn's closet. So while he's out in Europe at this point, fleeing from authorities, the court decides to try Einhorn in absentia, which is very rare. They don't do that like here and there. And basically what absentia means is they hold the trial without the person being there. So they had the trial against Einhorn, and he wasn't there. Like, his seat to where he's supposed to be was empty. So I thought that was very interesting. So during the trial, the medical examiner tells jury that he believes Holly was killed by blunt force trauma and beaten to death by Einhorn. And the man that Holly was dating, after she broke up with Ira, testified that Holly had feared Ira would kill her. And the former neighbors of Einhorn and Holly testify about the stench and the domestic abuse that they would witness. So Ira's defense claimed that there was a sighting of Maddox months after her disappearance, and that was all I could gather on the defense for his trial while he wasn't there. And that defense is very, very weak, in my opinion. But so on September 30th, 1993, the jury finds Einhorn guilty of first-degree murder, and it's at this point that the media gives him the name the Unicorn Killer, and it has no relevance to the act, like the trial, like it has no relevance to the murder in any way or anything like that. Basically, they gave him this name because his last name, Einhorn, means, it translates to unicorn in German. So they just wanted like an eye-catching name, I guess, for headlines, so they gave him that name. So eventually, French police managed to arrest Einhorn, as he was hiding out in the French countryside. He was arrested in 1997 in Champagne-Mouton, France. He had been living under the name Eugene Malon and was married to a woman named Annika Fludin. Now, his wife, Annika Fludin, was a very, very wealthy woman, and they were shacked up in this really big house in the French countryside. So Einhorn was a free man living like a king after the crime he committed, and that's just really disgusting to think about. But yeah, so the French government, even though they had him in custody, they refused to extradite him back to the United States. And the reason why is because France had just abolished the death penalty, and they were worried that if they let him go to the United States to face his trial, that he would be given the death penalty there, and they didn't want that to happen. So they were holding him in France. In 1998, Pennsylvania passes a bill nicknamed Einhorn Law that would allow defendants in absentia to request another trial. So since this law is passed, Einhorn is basically allowed to get another trial, of which he's actually present for. So February 1999 rolls around, and French court rules Einhorn can be extradited to the U.S. In the documentary I watched, it was very briefly spoken about that Einhorn attempted suicide, and they believe the reason he tried to do this is to avoid being sent back to the U.S. to face trial. It's kind of weird. He has like slashed his own throat, which is a very odd way to go about things. But in the documentary, minutes and vibes. Like, he was definitely crazy. Like, that's, I don't like, that's all I can say about it. Like, he had issues, especially if, being capable of murdering somebody and stuffing them in your closet. So, back to the case. On October 17th, 2002, Einhorn is sentenced to life in prison after being found guilty of first-degree murder once again. And his wife, she knew about his murder charges when she married him and all that, but, even after being found guilty and being sentenced, she still maintained his innocence, and that's kind of how you can tell she's definitely been brainwashed by this man and manipulated and just used for, I don't know, her money, shelter, whatever. But it was very sad to hear her saying that in an interview, that she was just so set on him being innocent, and she was supporting him, and I couldn't believe it. So another thing that is quite shocking is that none of the people who aided Einhorn in dodging law enforcement were ever charged with anything like obstructing justice or harboring a fugitive, including his wife. So they were all just let go. So, one thing that I found very interesting is that the apartment building where all this went down is still standing in Philadelphia. It is still an apartment building, and it looks almost exactly the same. It's only gone under minor restoration, things like that. So there actually is somebody living in the unit that Einhorn lived in and where the body was found. So the documentary crew went to interview the tenants and the current resident, at the time of the documentary. Her name was Maya Stockman. Excuse me. She was a young college student. She hadn't ever heard of the case, and something creepy she said was that certain areas of the apartment, including the bedroom closet where the body was kept, always made her feel uneasy. So her not knowing about the case and having that sense of uneasiness, it spooked me. So after Einhorn was sentenced, Holly Maddox's sister came out and said, "I've never wanted him to be executed. I would prefer he live a long life and then get a lingering illness." So that was very heartbreaking for her to say, and just keep that in mind, what she said about illness here. So Einhorn was serving his life sentence at the State Correctional Institute, Laurel Highlands in Somerset, years in Europe, just doing his thing. So guys, that is that case, and I would love to do more. I don't know what I would do next, but true crime videos are one of my favorites, so I'm gonna keep doing them because I love them. But I think the next video that I would like to do is like a Reddit scary story reading, because I also love those. So let me know what you guys think and what you guys like. I always appreciate recommendations, requests, all that sort of stuff. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope the new mic suits your fancy.